Moldavite is seen as the transformation stone, highly vibrational crystal. This is a crystal that has a high vibration and has literally changed people's lives. I remember I had this whole plan of like visiting my best friend for a couple of weeks for my birthday. She lived in Nigeria at the time. Lo and behold, Moldavite turned my little 2-week vacation into a 2-month vacation. I ended up meeting who became now like my second boyfriend at that point. He introduced me to celebrities like Rema, Ladipo, Ira Star. I started doing makeup for Ira Star. Dude, I was like becoming like a little celebrity makeup artist over there. I was killing it with content. I was so on top of my Hi friends, it's your girl Sojourner again with another episode of the Entitled Edit. This week we are talking about Moldavite and my personal Moldavite experience. Honestly, I feel like I could possibly be a little late to the bandwagon. I don't know if the girls are still talking about Moldavite or not, but it's definitely made a huge impact on my life. And although now I've lost a while ago, I have been really considering getting it again. I just want to talk about my Moldavite experience. It's a video that's been long overdue, and I feel like it was such a surreal journey that I just need to talk to everyone about it and see what the comments say, see what you guys think. If you guys have ever worn Moldavite, what your experiences are, because I did this like way back in the day. So, well, not way back in the day, but like a few years ago, right before it started to popularize. And I feel like there's just been so many different perspectives on it ever since. So before I even get into my experience, I'm actually going to for those of you who don't know much about crystals or tektites or spirituality, how they work with the body, I'm going to give a little bit of a crash course, and then hopefully you guys kind of have a proper context so that we can just get into it. What is Moldavite? Moldavite is a natural glass. It's specifically a tektite, like I mentioned, which are impacted glasses formed by meteorite impacts. Specifically, Moldavite was formed by meteorite impact in southern Germany about 15 million years ago, and it's been strewn across different parts of Germany, mainly the Czech Republic and Austria as well. You'll notice it is quite pricey because it was literally made from that meteor and that struck on Earth 50 million years ago, and so obviously it can just literally only be found in that one place. The whole lore about it is because it came from, we don't know where the meteor came from, but it seems pretty far away. It's because Moldavite is seen as the transformation stone, highly vibrational crystal that pretty much brings you to the high vibrations that it operates on. For those of you who don't know, as obviously all matter vibrates, all atoms vibrate, solid, liquids, and gas just vibrate at different frequencies, right? And so the whole idea with crystals is that they do encompass their own metaphysical properties and based on how they vibrate and how they were formed in the earth. And because, our bodies, obviously our vibrations can change, where our bodies are 70% water, which is why we're so spiritually malleable, or energetically malleable, I should say. And we can be so easily impacted, right, by our energies with each other, our energies to certain objects that could be crystals. So that's just a little crash course of how crystals work, where Moldavite is from, what it is. Moldavite is valued for its historical and cultural significance. It's a tangible connection to the cosmos and is sometimes attributed to have mystical powers. Because it was formed from a meteor that came from an unknown and very distant part of the universe, it encompasses some of the highest vibrational properties than any other crystal. That's essentially the biggest thing that makes her so cute and special and unique, because when you're wearing Moldavite, because it vibrates so high and it's from another universe that just clearly operates on that high vibration, it forces your body to vibrate high with it. But the thing is, in order to increase your vibrations, you have to let go of bad vibrations that are holding you down. In order to go up, right, you have to just like release the weight, release the baggage. And so that's what makes Moldavite such a like intense crystal or tektite to wear, because it essentially accelerates that process of like stripping you of like whatever traumas or obstacles or personal like inflictions are holding you back from fulfilling your fullest, highest potential and highest vibrations. It's going to like amplify that times 100 so that you can let it go and go through the process of like stripping yourself of it and ridding yourself of it or healing from it even. And you know, a lot of people have said they've reached the highest peaks of like their potential with the use of Moldavite. It's been like a very big spiritually transformational stone for them, whether it's been in their lifestyle, their love life, their career, their finances. It's just going to allow you to fulfill your highest purpose. And who doesn't want to do that? Now that we know how crystals work, what Moldavite does, I should say, we'll start getting into my experience and where I was in my life when I stumbled upon her. This was back in 2020. Yeah, it was like the summer of 2020. I had just gotten out of my first relationship. I was obviously going through it as one does when you go through your first heartbreak. But I think because towards the end of that relationship, I was also starting to go through an existential crisis and like just a very deep depressive state. I was at a point in my life where like 2 or 3 years, I guess, recently graduated. I was working at a call center for a loan service, and like I was just doing the same old 9-to-5 bullshit. And like, I think towards the end of that relationship, it really started to dawn on me like the realities of life, of just like clocking into a job that you don't really like, but it pays the bills and it gets things done. And like, you're just doing it day in, day out. There's no more like spring break. There's no more summer break. There's no more Christmas break. Like, that's just your life, and you get 2 weeks paid vacation, and that's it for the whole year, and you're just expected to do. And it was just getting to me, the fact that I felt like I was just so unfulfilled in like my purpose. I went to film school and I studied to be like a screenwriter and director, so I just really didn't picture that for myself, and like it was really starting to get very bleak and scary for me, the idea of just living that life. And then of course my relationship ended, and that was just like the cherry on top, and it just sent me down like a very existential spiral of like, what am I doing with my life? Like, there has to be more to this. It's hard too, because it's like when you go to school for something like screenwriting or directing, like everyone knows, like within the media studies and the arts, like there's no like one clear-cut path. Like everyone has their own individual path in which and how they find success. I kind of came across those viral CIA documents that got released about like astral projection and meditation, and like the fact that this whole existence is a simulation. And that set me just like down a whole huge spiritual rabbit hole of like questioning like my spiritual beliefs and like what this life and existence actually was, what we were meant to do with our time here, and how we could create the lives for ourselves that we envisioned. And as I was getting deeper into that journey, I started hearing about Moldavite, and I was just so taken by it. And there were like 2 specific stories that influenced me. One of them was called Courageous Faith. He is now called Courageous Faith. He wasn't called that before. He was like a huge Moldavite fanatic, essentially. And he still has a lot of those videos up. And it's so crazy, like, because a lot of people think that when you're spiritual, that you're like super logical and science-based and you don't believe in God. But if anything, I feel like, at least for me, my sense of spirituality has like opened my mind up so much further to like what I can perceive and like just the mysticism of our existence. And I think it's just like so fascinating. This is like actual scientific facts of like, this is a crystal that has a high vibration and has literally changed people's lives. And this guy had these like crazy recollections of like having like dreams where like he was in the perspective of his roommate's ferret, and like going through the process of how like experiencing what the ferret went through being born. And because he like didn't get along with his roommate's pet very well, like it would always come into his room to like shit and piss, and like it just literally didn't like him, and like he couldn't figure out why. And then literally like one of his first few days like on Moldavite, he had like a dream where he was like living through the POV of the ferret, and he just like after he woke up, like he had so much empathy for the ferret, and all of a sudden like the ferret also just like somehow warmed up to him. Who knows whether or not the ferret let him into that like psychological perspective, but these are just like the small mystic nuances that like happen to you when you're wearing Moldavite. He did not believe in anything. He was literally just heard about the crystals, heard that it does crazy and he was like, he was just ready for a change in his life because of how crazy the experiences were. He was like, oh yeah, no, I need to like, sorry, my camera died. Well, it didn't die, but it like overheated. Quick diversion, actually, if anyone knows how to combat keeping a Sony RX100 Mark VII from overheating while filming, let me know, or just any digital camera in general from overheating while filming, let me know in the comments because I have no idea. On the bright side, whilst I was waiting for my camera to cool down, I brought this bad boy. I totally forgot that I have mics. Another interesting experience that I remember him having was he spoke about working at a restaurant at the time. He was a server and he like absolutely hated his job, but once he started wearing Moldavite, just everything was going wrong that day. His manager was being an extra hard on him. Like there was just a lot. His shift became so frustrating that he ended up quitting that day. Like that is how accelerated, like that is how uncomfortable Moldavite will make you if you are in the wrong situations, you know what I mean? And he ended up quitting his job, and as soon as he came out into the parking lot to like, you know, get into his car, he started hearing these like boom, 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 boom. It was like almost like this wave. Like, I don't know, I can imagine like if like a spaceship was landing on the ground, like the sound you hear from like the wind like hovering, like creating like mills, like. But for some reason he felt like very calm afterwards, and like I don't know, like he was just like, I just started getting like these downloads of like, yeah, everything's gonna be fine, like you did the right thing. And I just remember like those two experiences, the fair experience and that audio experience, stuck with me because funnily enough, when I ended up wearing Moldavite within the first, like, I think it was like the second or third day, tell me how I heard that sound. I swear, tell me how I heard that womp, womp, womp sound. And I forgot what triggered it. I think it might have had to do with like coming to terms with the end of my relationship and realizing that like I needed to just focus on like beauty content and like focus on like really starting up my makeup business, because at that time like was around the time that I had literally I was probably like a year into starting, but like I wasn't really like too consistent yet. I just remember like hearing that sound, hearing it for a good 2 minutes, and I was so freaked out, bro. I thought I was going deaf. Like I was so, and then literally the video like came into my mind. I was like, there's no fucking way I'm hearing this sound while he just talked about it. Another person that I watched that influenced me was this girl. She spoke about her Moldavite experience, how intense it was as well. Yeah, she actually like used to have like a shop where she like sold Moldavite online, and she's actually who I got my first piece from. I got 5.2 grams, but she was big, okay? 5.2 grams of Moldavite, and I paid about like $230 plus tax for it, and that was 230 USD. I had it for like a good 4 years because yeah, I lost it last year. Also, another weird thing that happened to me, I found that like before Moldavite, I hadn't really had many dreams. I wasn't really dreaming a lot, and I used to like dream quite vividly. I don't know if it was because like I smoked like a lot of possibly, but it could have been that. I found that as soon as I started wearing it, another thing that I noticed was that I would have these dreams, which I now think was me astral projecting or just being in a lucid sleep, like within sleep paralysis. I would have these dreams where like my eyes were closed. It was pretty much the whole dream would be as if you're laying in bed like this, your eyes are closed, and like 4 people are standing over you having a conversation above you. And it was so jarring. I could tell they weren't my streams of thought. Like, it wasn't like, I don't know how to explain it. It was just like, it didn't feel like my own thoughts though. Like, I felt like I was like overhearing a conversation above me. And I had those dreams on and off for like a good, like the first month. And I didn't have them really much after that. But yeah, those were some of like the earlier days of like, I guess my energy acclimating with like the Moldavite. And yeah, just a lot of the freaky shit that happened. What I do want to talk about is what I manifested whilst having Moldavite in my possession. And I will say it was crazy. Like I said, right before Moldavite, I was obviously going through an existential crisis. I didn't know where I was going with my life. And I just knew that I wanted to make a big change. And when I started wearing Moldavite, I found that like my need to like transpire that change into a reality became so deep. I remember I started like posting on Instagram, like my makeup beauty content like 3-4 times a week. I started getting reached out to like by brands like Good Molecules, NYX, like Kira, like the eye contacts brand. Like, I was just starting to get reached out to like brands. But I remember I also like was pitching, like writing story pitches to like this Netflix screenwriting competition. Like, I did a lot, man. Like, I really persevered. And like, one thing I loved about Moldavite is just like the tunnel vision it gives you. I remember I had this whole plan of like visiting my best friend for a couple of weeks for my birthday. She lived in Nigeria at the time. And then after that, I was gonna go to New York, because at that point, like, New York had already opened since we were in the midst of COVID, and like New York was already opening. And so everyone was getting back to work and doing things. And like, because I knew like, okay, like I want to take this screenwriting, directing thing seriously. I want to take this content creating thing seriously, just putting myself out there any which way I can, whether it's through makeup, writing, creation, just creativity, you know? I'm from New York. I'm originally from Brooklyn. And like, I just told myself, you know what, like maybe I'll stay with some family, go back to New York, see what's open, see what, you know, production gigs I can get, either as a makeup artist on set or, you know, a PA. But I was like, you know, I want to visit my best friend in Nigeria. She had been living out there at that point for like 2-3 years. And she had already started, like, she was getting like notarized for like winning awards for her own, like being on her own radio show for like the biggest radio station like in the country, one of the biggest stations like even in the continent of Africa. And like, so she was just telling me like, you know, there's a lot of like opportunities over here, there's so many people I could like help you network with. And I just remember like being like, okay, like, you know what, that would be like a great way to kind of like dip my feet into just like meeting people and getting in the hustle and bustle of things, because like Lagos is a very busy city. And, you know, I felt like that would be a good transition right before I'd go to New York. Lo and behold, Moldavite turned my little 2-week vacation into a 2-month vacation. I ended up meeting who became now like my second boyfriend at that point, who worked for one of the biggest record labels in Nigeria, Maven Records at the time. He introduced me to celebrities like Rema, Ladipo, Ira Star. I started doing makeup for Ira Star. Dude, I was like becoming like a little celebrity makeup artist over there. I was killing it with content. I was so on top of my shit. I remember like thinking about like wanting to have that specific experience when I touched down in Lagos. Like, I wanted to just really capitalize on that trip and like meet as many people as possible and really get put on. And like, that is exactly what happened, because instead of going to New York after that, I came back home to renew. I think it was like I needed to renew my PR. Came back home to renew my PR. And as soon as that was done, about 2-3 months after, got back on a plane again and stayed in Lagos for like another like 7 months. And then through that, I was just doing more makeup, more content creation, more networking, more collaborations. I project managed like a restaurant by myself, literally from like idea to like opening day, like when it came to the interior design, training staff, curating the menu, designing the menu, like talking with investors. I worked with Africa Magic, which is like one of the biggest like television networks in Nigeria. I was part of like one of their writers' room for some of the like reality shows that they were like, you know, conceptualizing. I was literally like in the thick of living in my purpose, okay? And I genuinely believe, obviously, yes, it was me that did it, but like I genuinely believe that like Moldavite really helped accelerate that process for me, and just like giving me that like extra fire under my butt to like just go for it. I still say to this day, I try my best to compare myself to like just different versions of me rather than others. And I've been saying recently, like, I want my work ethic to get back to like where it was back in like 2021, 2022 when I was living there. I was like working day in, day out, and I was at peak performance. I was also showing up to the gym, eating good. I was also having a social life, going out partying in Lagos. There's like such a huge nightlife there. And like, it was just insane. I came back from Lagos back in 2022. Life started kind of steadying from there. At that point, there was a lot of like internal growth that I had to do, and a lot of like shadow work that I had to do coming back from that. And it definitely brought a lot of that up. So I've definitely digressed in terms of creative work over the last like 2 years or so since being back from 2022. I've definitely been doing like a lot of like emotional growth and just like personal growth. I felt like at some point like Moldavite was starting to feel like a little repetitive, because it feels like your life is like on speed or something. Like it's just like when I tell you that tunnel visual and it's like go, like that's the only thing. Like fulfilling your highest purpose is like the only thing that's on your mind, and like everything else that comes up, all the like shadow work that comes up, you're just like, yeah, like let me work on this. Like if I gotta cut this out, then yeah, I'm gonna cut it out. If I gotta get my body right, then yeah, sign me up. I'm in the gym 5 days a week. Like that, if I gotta do, like you will find a way. Like I'm Moldavite, like you will like, and anything that's not for you will literally like piss you the off to the point where like it makes you just want to cut them off or cut it off entirely, or that person, if it's a person, like they'll just reject the situation entirely. I think I lost it somewhere in my gym one day. I was still in the gym and I noticed it wasn't on me, and then like, but I could have sworn that I wore it to the gym. I looked everywhere in the gym, couldn't find it anywhere. Even called the gym people, told them what it looked like, show them pictures of it. If you come across this necklace, it's gonna be in this little like spiral little cage pendant holder. No one could find it, and it was the worst day ever, because so big. Like that was my girl. Now someone else is wearing her. Overall review, if you can get your hands on some Moldavite and it's legit and it's been blessed and cleansed and it doesn't have other people's spirits on it, do your research on Moldavite first. Obviously take this video with a grain of salt. This was my personal experience, but I definitely encourage you to watch the videos, watch the creators that I've linked from my personal experience, watch their early videos about Moldavite, watch other people's experiences with Moldavite, do your research, because it is a very impactful tektite and it can do wonders for your life. But also, if you're not ready and you're not someone that's like, I guess like open to like very rigid change and transformation and being uncomfortable, hurting, being in pain, healing, doing shadow work, give it some time. If you're just not someone that's ready for all of that discomfort and healing, then maybe hold off on it. But if you are interested and you feel like you need that like drastic change in your life to just get you going and get you started, definitely look into it. I highly recommend it. Keep in mind, it is from another planet, and so it is a beacon for energies. Because it is vibrating at such a high energy, you can have a lot of like very paranormal experiences, clairvoyant, clairaudience, sentient experiences. So if you're someone that gets easily freaked out or psyched out by things like that, take this experience with a grain of salt. I was pretty deep into my spiritual journey, and so like I have a very content understanding of energies, the good and the bad, and like I've learned to like not be too overly mystified by any of them. I was ready to handle it, and if you're someone like that, then I highly recommend it. I'm definitely considering getting it. Again, all of that being said, I think that's all she wrote. That's pretty much been my Moldavite journey. If I get back on, I would definitely love to talk about it again. If any of you have tried Moldavite, I'm definitely curious to hear what you think about it, what your experiences have been. That's for another episode of the Untitled Edit, friends. I'll check you next week.